Hey guys, and welcome to The Binger. John Wick 3 was released earlier this month, delighting fans. Everyone's favorite hitman is back at it again, kicking butt and taking names. What better time to look back on some of John's most creative takedowns? Join me as I dive into the best of the best from the franchise. You don't want to miss this. 7 bullets. As a hitman, there are a lot more creative instruments you can use than a simple gun. I totally get that. However, I do have to give major props to John in this scene from the second installment in the franchise. The Bowery King, played by Reeves' Matrix buddy Lawrence Fishburne, gives John a gun and one singular clip of ammo. Although it's a measly 7 bullets, it's symbolic. A bullet for each of the $1 million put against his life. I do love a bit of romantic justice on the big screen. Who needs Hamlet when you've got John Wick? Never one to turn down an opportunity to show off his skills, John heads into a fray with his trusty pistol. D'Antonio's men spot him from a mile off, but they don't call him Baba Yaga for nothing. John makes quick work of the men, picking them off like he's a human Spitfire. Once the gun is out, he tosses it to the side and continues to beat them all to a pulp. If we ever needed a reminder of why Wick is one of the best cinematic action heroes of his kind, then this is it. Boom. An eye for an eye. When I want to squeeze a little cardio into my daily routine, I usually go for a run or shove the Cheetos in my mouth at a quicker pace. John Wick, on the other hand, well, he likes to build up his stamina by throwing knives. In the recently released John Wick 3 Parabellum, Wick is pursued by a bunch of baddies. The bounty on his head is now a cool 14 million, so the dregs of the underworld are in hot pursuit of this walking cash cow. New York City isn't safe for him, and with the Continental booting him out, he's lost his one neutral ground. Clearly, the people after him are all brawn and no brains, as they chase the master assassin into an antique weapon shop. Did they ever make the wrong choice? Before you know it, John is slicing and dicing like he's a gourmet chef. With all these blades at his disposal, Wick is in his element. Despite being vastly outnumbered, no one can get to him quick enough. The way he throws the knives is spectacular, as are his lightning reflexes. The piece de resistance, when he nails one barely alive guy with an axe from yards away like it's no big deal. Pencil me in. Before we even get to see John's skills in all their glory, they're heavily hyped up. By the second movie, viewers already have a clear idea of what he's capable of, but this sequence amped that up by 1,000. In the first movie, a big deal is made about one of his past hits. Vigo talks about his finesse on one job where he offed 3 men with a pencil. Yeah, a single wooden pencil. I can't even fill out a form with one of those without having to sharpen it 5 times. And here he is using one like a samurai sword. Heavily pursued, John is shot by an assassin disguised as a violinist and someone that can only be described as a sumo wrestler. That's before he even makes it into the building. When he gets inside, he's pursued by 2 other men seated at a bar. They try to put a bullet in his brain, but John grabs a pencil and shoves it into the throat of one. Then he puts another straight through the ear of someone else. The speed of the whole scene, followed by the unmistakable crunch as it's driven through the brain matter, makes it one of the most prolific John Wick scenes to date. There's only one word to describe this eye-watering moment. Epic. Book 'em, John. Poor John. When you think about it, he's more tragic than Morrissey eating KFC at an animal rights festival. Not only did he lose his wife and his puppy in quick succession, but he also lost the ability to do normal things like go to the library. He's basically a really famous person without all the perks. In the latest movie, John knows that he's about to have a bounty put on his head, but he thinks he has a couple more minutes. Sadly, one eager beaver jumps the gun in the New York Central Library of all places. Can a fella just enjoy a quiet read in peace? Apparently not. The brute that confronts John isn't a shrinking violet either. He's a towering beast of a man, at least 2 feet taller than our guy. Producers got NBA player Boban Marjanovic to play the ill-fated role of Ernest, and honestly, no one else would have stood up to the job. See what I did there? Because he's so tall? Anyway, after a couple of words are exchanged, Ernest whips out a hidden knife and goes into full-blown attack mode. Armed with nothing, John lets his creative juices flow. Maybe he's inspired by the literary greats as he uses several volumes to shield himself from Ernest's advances. John beats him repeatedly with a heavy book before shoving it in his mouth. Ernest takes his final breath when John lays his neck on top of the reading material and swiftly breaks it with a satisfying crunch. Dante would be proud. Santinos' demise. The Continental Hotel is one of the most interesting parts of the franchise. Not only is it super cool to think that assassins have this sleek safe haven, but it's run by Winston. Winston oversees everything that goes on in the grounds and enforces the strict no business rule. If anyone dares to break the stipulations by offing a target, then he makes sure that they're suitably punished. When the dastardly Santino Dan Antonio loses all his henchmen to Wick in Chapter 2, he runs to the Continental with his tail between his legs. He demands Winston revoke John's membership, like a spoiled child, but the boss just gives him a verbal spanking. When John catches up to him, Santino mocks him. He genuinely thinks that he's safe, that John wouldn't dare risk the wrath of the high table by shooting him on sight. He's so cocky that he sits back and eats his dinner while sipping his red wine, going on about the delicacies the hotel stocks. Behind them, Winston urges John to reconsider his actions, which is why it comes as such a shock when John puts a bullet in D'Antonio's head mid-sentence. Is this the most out there hit of them all? Not by a long way, but it's the simplicity that makes this one worthy. D'Antonio expected something elaborate, and so did audiences. When he didn't get it, it was even more effective. Well played, John. Well played. Home invasion. The first real taste we get of John's expertise is when Vigo sends his goons to take care of him at the start of the first movie. Suited, booted, and ready to open a can of whoop-ass, John is waiting for them when they arrive. He shoots the masked men that enter his home like he's trying to rack up points at an arcade. Only there's not really a big prize at the end of it, just icon status. There are a few moments I could pick from the sequence, but the best is saved for last. When John is almost finished redecorating his house red with the inside of his victims, he gets into a struggle. The remaining man puts up a good fight, but John is just better. He's better at everything, including living. John and his opponent thrash around on the floor in a battle of wills, with nothing in between them but a knife. The unnamed attacker does a good job of keeping the sharp end of the knife at bay as John pushes down. But, in a stroke of genius, John hits the top of it repeatedly. It does the trick, and the poor perp is as done as Daisy the dog. May she rest in peace. Take Sumo that. I want to revisit one of our previous entries for this one, as it's really worth going into. As I mentioned, before John schools the bar assassins on how to use a pencil, he's set upon by two others. There's a violinist who he takes care of easily, and a huge sumo wrestler guy. That's not just me throwing around stereotypes either. The character is played by a real live champion sumo wrestler. His sheer size makes him a worthy opponent. He tosses John through a tempered glass statue thing like he's brushing crumbs off his jacket. When our hitman hero tries to floor his enemy, he just can't. He tries all his usual hand-to-hand combat tricks. Nothing works. It just seems to make him even faster. John manages to get him into some weird grip and shoots him twice in the side. Most people would fall down immediately, but this guy doesn't even flinch. It's like he feels nothing. Maybe that sort of impact is lost on him, like a mosquito bite. Either way, John keeps shooting, eventually putting a bullet in his mouth. Down the bad guy goes like a sack of potatoes. This takedown deserves a special mention because John had to work overtime to make it happen. You can tell that it was no easy feat, but a real battle. Let's go clubbing. The fight choreography in the John Wick movies is second to none. The action scenes are so slick and stylized that they're practically art. Despite everything that we've seen in the franchise so far, one of the best scenes happens in the middle of the first movie. Maybe it's the fact that John wants revenge on the dude that crushed his dog, but I'm living for this club scene. When Winston tips off John about his target's whereabouts, he heads to the night spot red circle. He goes in hard with this one, destroying two men in the dressing room before heading out onto the floor. John's not looking to bust some moves, but he does bust some heads. Bathed in beautiful red and blue lighting, he stalks his prey like a hungry lion. It's not long before chaos ensues, but John manages to keep it pretty organized. He takes the bodyguards out one by one, getting closer to Yosef. He pins one person down as he fires a gun with the other, all to the bouncy techno pop playing in the background. It's sheer genius. His terrified prey runs through the dance floor wearing only a towel as John moves through the revelers. Anyone that gets in his way gets a taste. John doesn't get him then, but he does get his revenge later on when he raids the Tarasov safe house. Vigo's son tries to brush off the incident as John corners him, saying, It was just that Wick finishes him off before he can finish the sentence. And that's probably a good thing. What do you think? Did I miss out on any of your favorite John Wick moments? Sound off down in the comments. And before you go, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss a thing from the Binger, trust me. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.